It's winter on the Wind River Reservation. A young woman stumbles across the snowbound plains, gasping and crying, crouching in the cold for only a moment before forcing herself onward. The next day, Agent Cory Lambert is out on a call. He spots a wolf circling sheep, drops it with a clean shot, and watches the rest scatter. Away from the ice and wind, Cory visits his estranged partner. Over coffee, they go over how to handle their son, Casey. When Cory calls him in, the boy is already packed, rifle slung at his side. Cory plans to drop him off at Wilma's parents' place while he tracks down whatever killed a yearling near their property. Wilma, meanwhile, is making a journey of her own. Cory tells her the route to take to avoid passing through Pinedale, a town she holds strong reservations for. At the barn, father and son tend to the horses. Casey struggles with feeding until Cory steps in, teaching him how to handle the reins, how to earn the animal's trust. The trip to Wind River ends with Casey sprinting into his grandfather's arms. Inside, fry bread waits on the table. With Casey gone, the old man turns to Cory. He says,
"Horses sense the storm, huh?"
"Yeah. So, police chief called you to hunt the lion, eh?"
Cory answers,
"Called me to hunt something."
The older man has lost a steer and wants to show him the spot. On their trek, they speak of Wilma and the prospects of a cushy job. That's why she's making a trip to go for the interview. In the snow, Cory studies paw prints, too many for one cat. A mother lion, teaching her cubs to hunt. He takes the sled deeper into the valley, finds a blood trail, then halts. Sliding on coveralls from his pack, pistol in hand, he follows the tracks. It's the same path the young woman had taken. The snow hasn't buried her trail or the blood that marks it. A churn of snow tells him something wrestled here. He follows the crimson streaks until he sees a shape in blue still against the white. Weapon raised, he moves in and finds her, barefoot, frostbitten, mouth frozen in a rattle of blood and ice. He then calls in for emergency assistance. The FBI will take a while since the road to the scene is bad. Chief Officer Ben doesn't want the body moved until they've had a look, but Cory grows impatient. The snowfall is heavier now, and the tracks could vanish. He presses Ben for permission to start the chase, but Ben refuses as the feds have to see it first.
"Colored folks yet?"
Cory asks. He's already certain the body is Natalie, while Ben is still unsure. A vehicle soon pulls up, but from the wrong side of the road. Cory approaches to offer direction. Behind the wheel is a woman, alone. He tells her to follow him. Her name is Jane Banner. She's come unprepared for the cold, wearing little for a 5-mile distance from Dan's place. She was the closest officer they had, pulled in from Vegas while in the middle of a weapons course. The whole arrival feels so lackluster she even shows up in a rental van. Ben mutters about the nonchalance. Indoors, Casey's grandmother gives Jane a change of clothes, from gloves down to boots. The clothes were meant for her granddaughter, and she's already uneasy about lending them out, more so if Jane doesn't bring them back. The second the Fed steps out, it's like Cory is seeing a ghost. He quickly recovers, assuring his son he'll only be gone for a few hours, nothing more, since they were supposed to spend time together today. With the snowstorm letting up, it's time to move. Cory and Jane share one sled while the police chief rides another, Cory's sled leading the way. Tribal police are already on site, and the scene has been taped off. Jane says,
"God, it was a blizzard 20 minutes ago."
It's clearer now, but the men explain the weather is practically bipolar. One thing's certain, the storm will be back. There's still debate about her identity between Ben and Cory, but Cory insists it's Natalie. When Jane takes a closer look at the body, she sees enough reason to order a forensic exam kit. The victim lived nearby, yet no one reported her missing. The nearest residence or structure is miles away, and the idea of a snow party doesn't add up as she was barefoot. Jane turns to Cory for his opinion, and he shows her what he can read from the tracks. From what he sees, she ran through the snow, collapsed where they're standing, then curled up and died from pulmonary hemorrhage after inhaling the freezing air. Jane wants him on the case. He's primarily a hunter, but he agrees to kick it up a notch, upgrade it to human predators. Cory is up late working on bullets when his son comes to him. The boy has heard the news about Natalie and just wants to know if it's history repeating itself. His father can't hide that it just might be. The next day, Jane learns Natalie didn't live with her parents, but with her boyfriend since she was 18. The medical examiner confirms multiple accounts of assault, though he can't say if it came from one attacker or several. She also had lacerations, but ultimately died from pulmonary hemorrhage, just as Cory said. Because of this, the examiner won't rule it as homicide. He's bound to the evidence, not the circumstances. Without that ruling, higher-ups can't get involved. They all know it's murder in theory, but it won't go on the medical record. Jane grows frustrated and tells Ben that if she gives her supervisor this report, she'll be pulled off the case and sent back to Vegas, leaving them with no federal help. The interrogations begin with Natalie's father, who bristles at Jane's tone and meets her questions with hostility. He admits he never met his daughter's boyfriend. She hadn't been open with him, and he chose not to press. Her mother is shut away in the bedroom, and though Ben signals for Jane to let her be, she steps inside anyway. She finds a broken woman, crying and bleeding into her lap. A knock at the door pulls Mr. Hanson away, and when he opens it, Cory is standing there. The two men lock eyes, bound by a pain that doesn't need words. The grieving father collapses into Cory's arms.
I'd like to tell you it gets easier. If there's any comfort, it's getting used to the pain, I suppose.
Cory says. He shares how after losing Emily, he once went to a grief seminar. What stayed with him was the reminder that he wasn't expected to be fixed or whole again, but for his own sake, he had to hold on to the love she gave him more than the ache of losing her. He urges Natalie's father to do the same. Martin still has a son, but the boy's a junkie running with the Little Feather boys. For Jane's investigation, Cory admits he's seeking personal justice, and that's enough for Martin to hear. Ben, Jane, and Cory head to the Little Feather's turf. As they park, music is blaring from inside. Ben explains there are 4 brothers in total, and none of them are easy. Cory circles around back while Ben and Jane take the front. Sam Littlefeather answers, strung out, muttering that his brother's in prison and Chip, Natalie's brother, isn't around. Then he blindsides them with pepper spray. While Jane and Ben reel from the sting, Cory times the opening and drops one of the boys with a shovel as another stumbles over him. Jane pushes inside, gun raised, though her vision is blurred and her senses scrambled. Turning a corner, she's met with a shot from Sam. She fires back, several rounds hitting him until he collapses, coughing. She kicks his weapon away and holds him at gunpoint. Ben steps in, but when he sees the state Sam's in, he tells her they're leaving. Jane argues they can call for help, but Sam takes his last breath and Ben nonchalantly leaves, Jane trailing. Outside, Frank and Chip have been apprehended. Jane starts the questioning, but it doesn't go as planned because Chip has a breakdown the second he learns his sister is dead. But it seems he does know who the boyfriend was. Next, Jane wants Chip to take her to the mysterious boyfriend, but Cory deduces that's not the way to go. He points out fresh sled tracks in the snow, pulling binoculars to trace them toward the same hills where Natalie was found. The trail climbs upward, but never comes back down. He deduces they don't need to go far to find the answers they need. Jane admits she's green when it comes to tracking, but Cory reminds her that's why he's here and they need to move while the snow is still holding Natalie's story. At the hill, Cory cuts the engine. The sleds can't go farther through the trees, so they gear up and continue on foot. They don't have to walk long as the tracks end with another body, half buried in snow, torn up by birds and bloodied. By nightfall, the scene is crawling with cops. Ben says he'll pull camera footage from the rig where Natalie's boyfriend worked. The boys are in custody, but they've stayed silent. Cory offers to talk to them, though it wouldn't hold up in court not unless they confess to an officer. Still, he says he might get something useful. While Jane steps aside to take a call, Cory presses again. He's known Chip since he was a kid and could reach him. Ben shrugs, pretending he has something else to handle, which leaves Cory free to move in. Chip starts out blaming the town for his mess of a life, but when Cory slips into lecture mode, he shoots back with a jab that cuts too deep. Cory loses patience, seizing him by the neck and shoving him across the car before climbing in. He finally says his piece, lays it on the boy, and as he turns to leave, Chip breaks. Chip spills what he knows. Matt, an older guy who worked security at the rig and was Natalie's boyfriend. If anyone knew more, it was Sam. Cory comes back to the chief and the Fed, though the latter strains not to ask what he's managed to pull from Chip. Ben suggests he meet them at the rig in the morning, but Cory sidesteps with a parable and heads out. Wilma is lodged nearby and has heard what he's been up to. She tells him this won't mend the hole he's trying to patch. When he speaks their daughter's name and insists he's moving for something else entirely, she shuts him out. The database came back with an identity for their latest body. It's Matt Rayburn, a security staff member at one of the drill stations. Cory invites Jane inside his home to warm up after she delivers the news. While he gets her water, she stares at family photos. He comes back and points out Emily.
She passed 3 years ago.
I'm sorry.
You want to know how, don't you?
I do, but
Makes two of us.
Cory begins to tell her what happened. Back then, he was working in Pinedale and called Wilma for a quick getaway, leaving 16-year-old Emily and her younger brother Casey on their own. That same night, there was a party, and by morning, he got the harrowing call from Natalie that her best friend was missing. A shepherd later found Emily's body 20 miles from the house, but by then coyotes had mutilated her remains so badly the autopsy was nearly useless. Cory falters as the memory unravels, struggling to hold steady after giving so much away. Jane excuses herself, slips into the bathroom, and when she comes back out, she notices a write-up Emily had penned, something that had once caught the eye of a program in Colorado. Jane admits she's sorry for the lines she crossed earlier in the day, that all she wanted was to help. She asks if Chip gave him anything she should know, but he hasn't said more than she already knows. They part ways with a quiet goodnight. The investigation will move forward in the morning. Ben gets a few men in uniform to accompany him and Jane to the station where Matt once worked. Cory sticks to the sled tracks. Jane briefs the new guys. Their job is to search Matt's trailer for evidence that might connect him to Natalie. Should Cory find anything along his path, he only needs to radio for backup. Out in the snow, Cory follows the trail, finding animal paws that lead him to a carcass. Meanwhile, at Matt's workplace, the guards claim they were just about to report their colleague missing. They say he's been gone for days after a fight with his girlfriend. Jane notices both men look roughed up, but they chalk it up to the job, citing lack of helmets and face shields. The supervisor finally allows the officers to search Matt's trailer. Beyond the carcass, Cory sees the tracks keep traveling. Looking through his binoculars, he notices they cut right past the trailer site the officers are now combing. On the way to Matt's trailer, one guard probes. When Jane says Natalie filed a missing report for Matt, he counters that they must have found her dead before she could do that. It raises suspicion, and Ben's people start to flank him, causing him to draw his weapon. The confrontation escalates to an armed standoff between both units until Jane reveals she's FBI. Where Ben's people have no jurisdiction, she does, overruling trespassing. She diffuses the situation, making the boys shield their weapons. Cory rides toward them with urgency. When he tries to reach Ben on the radio, there's no response. He takes his rifle and hurries forward on foot. At the trailer, Jane learns there's one more guard, Pete, who isn't with the others. His colleague says he's asleep inside, covering the night shift. A flashback follows. Natalie shows up unannounced at Matt's trailer. He's thrilled to see her, pulls her in, and kisses her. Later, they lie in bed talking about where they might move. Matt rejects everywhere except Point Mugu in Ojai, where he'd once been stationed. He recalls his best Christmas there, and Natalie is sold. She wants to live there. Their moment is cut short when they hear the others return. They were supposed to stay in town. Natalie covers up, but a drunk Pete catches her changing and starts mouthing off about wanting some action. When he gets handsy, Matt roughs him up and shuts the others out with the curtain, all of them drunk. Matt starts to get dressed when Pete rams into him and the two scuffle until Matt shoves him off. One of the others throws a slur at Natalie and she slaps him. Pete yanks down her pants and Matt turns his fury on him. The rest pile on Matt, forcing Natalie back when she tries to intervene. A bottle comes down on Matt's head, knocking him out. Natalie stirs awake to Pete on her, the others waiting their turn. Matt fights his way back up, and in the chaos, Natalie slips free. At the door, she glances back and sees he's surrounded. She hears the sound of choking before she leaves. Back in the present, Jane is still knocking. When she tries the door, it's locked. Curtis plays dumb while Cory finally reaches Ben. The chief yells for Jane to get away from the door, but she's blasted from inside and sent flying across the snow. The ambush starts, the guards against the officers. Jane manages to shoot one guard several times in the legs and kills him before he can kill her. Someone else inside uses a machine gun and Jane watches Ben die. Curtis is still alive and swaps Jane's gun from her before she can use it. He's about to shoot her when something in the distance catches his attention. A shot ends him. Jane takes cover and the sniper clears the other two he sees. That leaves two in the trailer, but not for long. One is shot before he can act. Pete is left scrambling for cover. He slips out the window and runs. Jane shoots at him from under the trailer, but he keeps going. Cory shows up and assists the wounded Jane inside the trailer, weapon still drawn in case someone else pops up. He helps her to the couch, but while he's trying to assess her wound, she tells him to give her his radio as she'll need a helicopter if she's going to survive the day. Cory says,
I won't bring him back. You have to know that.
Jane wounded, he'll have to go after Pete and just had to let her know he's not planning on following protocols. She already knows, but still gives him the go-ahead to do the needful. The brute staggers through the snowbound forest, exhausted and stumbling, jiggling to stay awake with his weapon drawn. Paranoid, he swings his pistol left and right, but fails to notice on time Cory in camouflage. The hunter knocks him down. When he comes to, he's stuffed in a bag, limbs bound, face bloodied. Cory tells him they're at Gannett Peak, the highest mountain in Wyoming. Pete pleads to talk, and Cory sits on a stump, calm, offering to listen. Pete wriggles into a sitting position and catches sight of his bare feet. Panic sets in as he realizes his boots are gone. Cory watches him unravel, telling him he's worrying about the wrong things as his time is already limited. Pete starts rambling about how the endless snow and slow life wore him down, but Cory just sits steady, reminding him he isn't the law, just here to listen. Pressed by Cory urging him to talk, Pete admits what he did, confessing to assault and murder in broken words and desperate gestures. Cory pulls a blade and cuts him loose. If Pete can make it to the highway, then he's a free man. That's the same chance Natalie had. She ran 6 miles barefoot, and now it's his turn. But the guy doesn't understand until the crack of Cory's rifle past his ear startles him into a frantic run. The terrain works against him, hills, slopes, drifts that force him onto all fours, grunting and clawing through the snow like an animal. Cory watches from a distance as the man's lungs give out on him. Pete collapses onto his back, gasping, fighting for breath until at last he goes still. Cory never has to fire a shot. Cory visits Jane at the hospital. She's breathing, still sore, but it's clear she'll make it. He cracks a joke that makes her giggle, even though it hurts to laugh. He brought a stuffed alligator, and then they slip into quieter conversation about who or what saved her life, Cory or her bulletproof vest. Cory says she's a tough woman, and in his eyes, it was her fight to survive in the harsh weather that kept her alive. Soon enough, she'll be strong enough to go home. He continues to keep her company, trying to lighten the mood again with a magazine, but all Jane can think about is that Natalie ran 6 miles in the snow. Cory stops at Martin's place and calls through the house for him. No one answers. His wife, Annie, is asleep in their daughter's room, and the room is littered with Natalie's things that have now become scattered memories. Around the girl's desk are photos of her and Emily, one from high school graduation catching his eye, overwhelming him with emotions. Outside the window, he sees Martin backing him, seated and staring toward the vast snow. Cory goes to him and sees the man's face painted. When he asks, Martin says it's his death face, something he made up, with no one left to show him what passing really looks like. He admits he was about to give up when Chip rang. His boy is at the station, waiting for his daddy to come pick him up. It's the first time he's called home in over a year. Martin's heard the news but still believes Pete is missing. Cory assures him he's down too and goes out with a whimper. Cory tells Martin to be gentle with Chip as he's suffering too. Martin nods, but admits he feels a stronger pull to sit and just miss Natalie, even if only for a minute, before he can face the rest. Cory sits with him through the rest of the quiet. It's a wrap for this one. Keep watching for more. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.